Let's move to our positional analysis for this week. We'll start at halfback, mate.
Yeah.
Obviously, the two-gun approach is going to be a very, very popular one. I know it's what I am looking down the barrel of. Where are you sitting at the moment?
Gun at halfback. And we'll do it very shortly, but I said I can make a case against Nathan Cleary, and I'm not overly tempted to do it, but the reason being is that there's just no one knocking the door down outside of those two to say, you know what, it's worth saving 300-400K on one of these stars of the game. So, look, I am sitting with a Cleary-Hynes combination at the moment, but unless someone can make their case between now and round one, that's what I'm looking at.
I'm sitting in the exact same boat. I can't see who else is knocking that door down. I've had suggestions about Sean Johnson. We'll get to him soon. I don't really see it. And I'm also, we obviously got to the end of the season last year and we had a lot of trades left at the back end. I don't know if I want to spend 4 and 5 trades on fucking halfback to start the year when I can get the two absolute guns that I want that are both goal kickers, both in good sides. I don't know. I feel like people are out thinking it a little bit.
It almost seems too obvious, but at the same time, you're also paying over 900K for them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, everyone wants to stack fullback, obviously. If you're starting with, say, a Harry Grant or a Dylan Brown at 5'8", which I know you're pretty keen on, it's a lot of money. Like, something's got to give somewhere. And for anyone that is bold enough to take the risk and start without one of them, it is a lot of money you can free up to filter across the rest of your squad. So I can see why people are looking elsewhere. And if you look at ownership, get it up here, people aren't necessarily flocking. So Cleary's at 41% ownership, Nicho's at 33%. So there's enough out there, well, a lot out there who don't own.
Yeah, I look at them and I just think, and you know what? I'm actually very confident that you'll be able to get these guys for $850 or so after 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, they might not hit their average the first 3 to 5.
Historically, neither of them have over the last few years hit their average in the early weeks. Nicho obviously didn't play in the first 4 weeks last year, then came out and brained it. But, it's more so about the first 4 rounds rather than their first 4 games for me. And if these guys are both fit for the first 4 weeks, we saw how slow Penrith started last year. I think you can get them cheaper, but I also just think, fuck, is it worth me spending 2 or 3 trades there? I think I'd rather spend them elsewhere and make money somewhere else.
I'll go straight into the nitty-gritty of it and around starting without how they're going to start the season. So I've done a bit of a dive into Nathan Cleary and his starts the season in recent years. 2023. So last season he averaged all up, I should say, 89 for the season.
Yep.
He averaged 90.4 in his first 5 games last year. He did start with a 3-round average of 56.6.
Yep.
Go back to 2022. Across the first 5 games, he averaged 97.6. He missed the first 3 rounds that season. Then his first 2 games back, 34 and 57.
Yep.
So obviously the last 2 years, that suggests those next 2 rounds he's gone huge. And then 2021, in the first 5 rounds, that was the year, massive point scoring. He averaged 108 for the year. That year, he averaged 99 across the first 5 rounds. So while there's a couple of slow, again, first 2 to 3 games the last couple of years, if we're looking at the first 5 round sample size, actually above the season averages.
Well, and I think that's where, though, you'd really need to focus on those first few rounds because that's when there is less points being scored. I don't like when there was 1 year there where you said he missed the first 3 rounds. To me, those numbers, I don't really give a fuck about those numbers because it's the first round 1, round 2, round 3 where teams always show up with a defensive attitude. It's lower scores. That's where I think you can get them a little bit cheaper. But there's every chance you just don't, and then you're fucked.
Yeah. Is there an argument then to say, if you're saying, all right, like realistically, that you might get a bit of a price reduction, whether that's 50 to 100 grand by around 3 or 4? Could you go someone like a Mitchell Moses with a gun early draw that's a lot cheaper, that with a half decent start could make a bit of money at value, as the other one does? Could be a 150, 200K swing very quickly.
Yeah, once again, though, my big belief, and I think that, take the Cowboys, for example, last year, I think we overread early draws a little bit too much. No team is going to show up and not defend well in the first week or 2.
Yeah, I don't look at the first 3 rounds and go, bottom sides from last year, Tigers and Doggies and C teams playing them and going, they're going to have 40 put on them.
Yeah.
The defence will be tight. They'll be up and rearing to go, especially round one.
Yeah.
It's not, let's say one of those two sides does finish bottom two again this year. That same team come around 10 or 11 or around 20 or 21 where you're going, points are going to float, first 3 to 5 rounds, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and let's take Mitch Moses, for example. I'm sorry, there's not a hope in hell I'm relying on Parramatta to put teams to the sword and Mitch Moses to kill it to get me to Cleary and Hynes.
Yeah, well, they've got Penrith in Penrith round 2, Para, which regular season, we know they don't lose that, so you can lock in a ton there.
Yeah, well, and you know what? That's probably the game where Mitch Moses is most likely to fly in because that's Parramatta.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk Nicho Hynes first, mate. 970K. I mean, we can talk all the positives in the world about Nicho. We know how much of a gun Supercoach player he is. We know, you guys might remember, he came back for the first game of last season and scored 180 despite having a potentially career-ending leg injury. Can't win them all, that's fine. Hope you get that one, Kat. If you don't, probably for the best, and I'm never going to explain it to you. But Nicho Hynes, mate, 970K. If you don't get him now, you're going to want to get him at some point. I'm sort of just happy to start with Nicho. But I do have a counter argument when you're willing to hear it. But I'll throw over to you now just to get your thoughts on Nicho first.
Yeah, look, I think he's been the top scoring player the last 2 seasons of Supercoach. Opened up last season with 180, 102, 89, 97, 126, coming back from said career-ending leg injury. So, and then to be absolutely hypocritical as to what I've just said, starts the season, does have the Warriors round 1, pretty tough on what we saw last year. Bulldogs, Tigers, Raiders. So, again, it's not going to be the same Bulldogs, Tigers, Raiders by mid-season or even round 7 or 8, but it is still as good a draw as you could sort of hope for to start the season. Warriors a bit tougher. They do have the bye in round 5, whatever, so be it. That's a fair way away. Seriously, the way he started last season, the fact that the reality is he's only playing, this is his 3rd season at halfback. He's only going to get better in that position. Matty Moylan leaves, who played a pretty big role in attack for them. No, he wasn't there the back end of last year. Just, it's all aligning again for Nicho.
I think Matty Moylan leaving is very interesting. I think it could hinder him. Supercoach scoring wise, I mean. I think that people underappreciate the role that Matty Moylan played. I know it's easy to say, Matty Moylan's shit, he fucking doesn't do this, doesn't do that, whatever. What Matty Moylan did, though, is allowed Nicho Hynes to be a very ball-dominant 7. Is there a more ball-dominant 7 in the league than him?
No.
Like, you would have Ben Hunt up there, you'd have DC up there, but not as much as fucking Hynes. No way.
Yeah.
That's where I worry if Trindle's going to be able to play that same role. Because I personally think Trindle's more of a halfback than a 5'8",
so
naturally.
And it is a concern, yes. It was like, if Matty Moylan could defend, he'd still be in that NRL and he'd be one of the best 5'8s in the game. His attack was sublime for the last few years. His just defence fell off a cliff. The only counter argument to that would be that with Trindle there, who is more of an organiser, does he put Nicho in position who has an even greater role in attack without Matty Moylan there?
Do you see Nicho not jumping into first receiver and whatnot? I think it's too much of his natural go. I know. My worry is that they don't gel that well to start the season. And look, I'll be starting with Nicho. Yeah, I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here. If I was to go against Nicho Hynes, this would be why I would do it. This is my only concern with the Sharkies. I think they will sort it out. And as you said, mate, it does help. As much as I don't love to read into draws early, it couldn't get that much better for them, realistically. But I think that combo between Hynes and Trindle is going to be very interesting to watch how it gels.
It will be. The one thing that gives me sort of a bit of faith towards them getting it right early, I'm still trying to work out what the combination of Hynes and Moylan was. They were all over the shop. They were running around like headless chooks. They were such a non-traditional halves combination the way that they played, but they managed to make it work. So it's like they get someone like a Trindle who is a more traditional half coming in. I think he's going to simplify things, but it will be a question mark, but it can't be any more chaotic than with Moylan.
Yeah, but mate, I personally don't think it was that chaotic. It was Moyser, can you sit on the left edge? And Nicho, you just do fucking everything, which is what I think made him so good in Supercoach, and that's what I worry that we could lose that a little bit with Nicho. And look, am I telling you he's going to average 50 this year? No, he might go from fucking 93 to 89. Like, I don't think it'll be a train wreck, but I'm very intrigued to watch how it plays out. And I think everyone's more than happy to call Moylan shit and crap and whatever. He's a bloody good footballer, and he played an important role for Nicho, which I think people are sleeping on.
Oh, if he stays fit for the entire season over in the Super League, he should be paying about $1 for the man to steal.
He will absolutely shit him. He'll fly.
Super League fantasy teams, lock and load him.
Lock and load Moyes.
Yeah, so, and we often refer, Roo, in Supercoach to blokes that make you feel sick when you watch them, and that is the best sign that you can get that you want this bloke in your team. Nicho Hynes, probably him and Kalen Ponga are the two, but Nicho Hynes even more so is just the one that when you do not own, you can't watch Cronulla because he has so many touches, so many major attacking stats. It's awful.
Yeah. And, you know, other halfbacks that we'll talk about today that we'll get to, Sean Johnson, DCE, Hughes, Moses, none of them make me feel like that. I mean, here we are, the Warriors having this unbelievable season. Sean Johnson is flying. He's more than 100K cheaper than Nathan Cleary, and he's almost 200K cheaper than Nicho Hynes to start the season. Like, Sean Johnson has to play unbelievable footy to score 100. Nicho Hynes puts his boots on and he's on 93. Like, it's apples and oranges for me.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
So Nathan Cleary then, 912K. I will be starting with both of them. I made a counter argument for Nicho that I don't overly believe in. Can you make a counter argument for Nath?
Yeah, I can. And it's the draw to start the year. So for starters, they're going to England for the World Club Challenge.
Yep.
That is going to take a lot out of them. We saw a World Club Challenge game in 2023 that took a bit out of them when they started the season slow.
And that was here.
That was it. The reality is that they are 3-time defending premiers, and while they've defied odds year after year after year, you know, you become the hunted from round one the next year. There's often premiership hangovers with the best teams in the competition. Penrith are unbelievable. They've managed to defy that, but a fourth time, there's every chance that they start a little bit slower. They have the trip to England. They then go down to Melbourne in round one. That defence is going to be very, very stiff. They then have Parramatta in Penrith, which Parramatta seem to always get up for that during the regular season. They'd have a positive record against Penrith in Penrith, I reckon, regular season in the last 2 to 3 years. Broncos in Penrith, Roosters away, Manly at Brookie, and then they have a bye in round 6. Very, very tough. They then have the Tigers in Bathurst in round 7, which I don't think they've ever beaten the Tigers in Bathurst, at least not in the last 12 months.
Yeah, true.
So they then go to the Cowboys away up in Townsville. So it is a very difficult draw. So you look at the trip to England, the draw to start the season. If there's any premiership hangover coming back off last year, I can see why you would go against Nathan Cleary. And if I was weighing up going against either Nicho or Cleary, it'd be Cleary.
Yep, fair. I will say this about Nath. I think it's worth noting that for the first time in 4 years, he's just had an entire off-season.
Yeah.
Off. He's coming in fresher than he has the last few years. You guys remember he pulled out of the Kangaroos, obviously, after that grand final with an injury and whatnot. He's been whining and dining all around the world with his missus, enjoying himself.
Tough life.
But yeah, there's no denying the draw. Melbourne round one, that's always going to be tough. Despite Melbourne not really firing a shot against them last year, you know round one, bellyache's going to have them up. Shout out to my best man who you remember from my wedding. He actually, I think he actually jinxed the Melbourne Storm. He said something about me and my wife, we could get through anything. He said it could be Melbourne Storm round one and I'd back you in. From that moment, I remember sitting there at my wedding thinking, ooh, I don't know who they play round one, but I bet they fucking lose after he's jinxed them.
Yeah, it was
Penrith round one.
It was good to get a bait to your wedding. I was actually working with the catering team, so I've got full frontal saw everything.
Yeah, you're in the back corner. Yeah, you're almost to the next suburb.
Serving baby sausage rolls.
Yeah.
Closer to the action than me.
Well,
yeah, I was closer than the Rook.
Can't win them all. Can't win them all. But Melbourne week 1, Parramatta week 2. Brisbane, the one thing I do like about that Brisbane matchup, Nathan Cleary plays most on that right side. That'll be up against that Brisbane edge with
Cobbo.
We
don't know.
Ezra,
Yeah.
and I think Piakura. So a little bit appealing there. Jerome Luai racing the clock to be back for round 1. If Jerome Luai's out, I'd probably like that more for Nath.
Yeah.
But yes, mate, definitely when you just eye test it, despite the negatives I pointed out for Nicho Hynes, I think the bigger worry is Nath Cleary. He's no stranger to starting slow as well.
Yeah.
World Club Challenge, there is a lot to take in there.
The other thing is we saw the back end of last season. I reckon ballpark about 2-3 rounds out from the end of the season. Might have even been finals, close to the finals, where he started, all great teams have to change their plan. Yep. You can't throw the same out season after season and expect to win a comp. And Cleary started after being very right side dominant, where he obviously plays, started sweeping to the left, and he would link up with Luai sweeping out the back on the left. Basically similar to what Nicho Hynes does at the Sharks, where he plays both sides.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a temporary plan just for finals and to change things up and throw new things at opposition defences. But if that becomes the norm, which there's every chance it does, holy heck, he could average 100 plus easy.
And keep in mind that, maybe the Penrith Panthers, they start to do that more, simply getting ready for 25, where Jerome's not going to be there. There probably will be a young guy there or a less experienced guy. So you are going to have to ask Nath to do a lot.
Shit.
That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So, yeah. Once again, if you want to go to Shaun Johnson, we'll talk about him soon instead of Nath Cleary. My question is, you'll save 130K. Where are you going to spend 130K that's going to be more beneficial than having Cleary over Johnson? That's my biggest concern.